Hey everybody, welcome to Wednesday. People seem to like this lighting, so I'm keeping it. Okay, so this isn't the video I intended to do today. Midpoint yesterday, people were like, talk about The Last of Us 2 leaks. And it's like, oh, okay. So it would be real easy to just go, no matter what, you shouldn't leak because it hurts the people you work with and all that stuff. That would be reductive and not interesting. And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to dig deeper into what's reasonable and what can be predicted. If you like this sort of stuff, which I'm sure will piss off a lot of people, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Now, I think part of the interest in this is because Jason Schreier, formerly of Kotaku, and guy who built his career on people sending him leaked information, condemned an employee leaking information. This is clearly a hypocritical position. And I'm going to unzip this because it's creepy to have the Mad Hatter's face looking at you while I'm trying to talk. Moving on from that part's easy. This isn't just about whether it's ethical to leak game footage. Of course, in a perfect world, it's not. This is a question of what can be reasonably expected of a person worked to the point of mental and or physical illness due to Naughty Dog's notorious brutal crunches. And this is true of any company that crunches, be it CD Projekt Red, be it old school BioWare, so on and so forth. So that's the part that gave me pause, and that's the part that made it interesting. I'm not going to talk about the leaks themselves. I think they've all been taken down. I saw pieces of them because I went digging, and after that I'm like, you know what? This could be heavily disappointing. This could be totally misleading. It's from a slightly earlier build of the game. I would assume the plot's mostly set, but we're not going to talk about that because that's not cool. And that ruins people's fun. And I'm not about ruining people's fun. But personally, I think that really cool stuff, it's very hard to spoil in that way, but some people get very upset about spoilers. So, like I said, not gonna do it. It's this question of if you work employees half to death with brutal crunches and possibly not great workplace environments, right, Momo? Right. Can they be expected to behave rationally and reasonably and therefore ethically? Because ethics is based on reason and rationality and the assumption that people will behave in their best interests and or the collective good. And when people snap because they are exhausted, that is not the way people think. Add bitterness and the fact that somebody was either fired after being crunched to the bone or quit because they couldn't handle the crunch. Well, now you've got a situation where you've just cut someone loose who is mad at you, who is not thinking clearly because allegedly you work them half to death. Ethical or not, that's stupid, right? I mean, every company has some people who leave because they don't fit the culture, or they are crazy and are them in and of themselves toxic. And I can't totally rule out that this was a toxic employee that behaved toxically. If that was the case and they figured out that the employee was toxic, I think there's only so much you can do to prevent them from smuggling things out. You would think that somebody working at a place like Naughty Dog had enough experience that if they had that in their past, it would have come up. who knows? There's a lot of assumptions in this. So I don't want to talk about specifically the Naughty Dog situation here. I want to talk about, in general, the idea that you can crunch someone until they either can't take it anymore and quit, or you fire them for lack of performance. And what could possibly go wrong? They signed an NDA. There's sort of a joke within some circles in gaming. Some people in gaming take NDAs super seriously, like ridiculously seriously. Like the NDAs are so scary, employees are afraid to say what day of the week they went into work. I'm not kidding. Then there are other companies who are like, I don't really think NDAs do anything. And this is proof NDAs really don't do anything. If someone is going to leak, if somebody is going to screw you up, then they're going to screw you up. And I wish that because of this, companies were less nuts about NDAs and didn't, in some cases, drop them on you mid-project. That happened to me personally. I actually had to step back from a gig because they dropped an NDA on me after I'd already provided work product to them. And it was when I couldn't sign because of the wording. And they were crunching, and that wasn't the time to talk about it. So just step away. Ghost into the background. They barely noticed. That's crunch. But, you know, what are they going to do now? Find this person, be able to prove in a court of law that they were the ones that leaked the game, and sue them. Well, with Sony's lawyers, maybe. Right now, I think that whoever did it is in a position that they just don't care. They are that angry and or psychologically broken that they are not thinking reasonably. And ethical or not, this is a potential outcome of breaking people in crunch. I don't know how many different ways I can say this. You want people to part on good terms? Don't exhaust them. Don't make them miserable, because, okay, 50 people you burn out will behave ethically and nobly, and then one person doesn't. And you've got this. And again, I don't think it'll hurt sales. I think all PR is good PR. Most people didn't see it. I mean, stuff leaked on The Witcher 3 before it was released. Witcher 3 sold like gangbusters, okay? So I don't think that's an issue. If the employee thought they were going to hurt the company, they're not going to hurt the company. I think this employee didn't follow one of the, those Sun Tzu's rules of war. Don't interrupt your opponent while they're making a mistake. Neil Druckmann is screwing up The Last of Us 2 launch plenty, to the point that, I mean, you guys know I'm kind of social justice warrior-y. Even I'm not hyped for this game. I'm actually starting to feel personally, I know it's a stereotype, if I came here for the zombies, and I'm feeling very attacked right now, I'm actually feeling personally kind of icky, because there's so much emphasis pre-launch on Ellie's sexuality. And first of all, she is a teenage girl. I don't want to go there. I'm 42 years old. I don't want to think about the sex lives of teenagers unless they come to me and ask advice. Okay? This isn't fun for me. This is kind of creepy. And they are so defining Ellie based on her queer identity that it's making me feel, somebody who identifies in many ways that way, it's making me feel as somebody who is not a person to Naughty Dog, that we are this category that can be exploited for marketing. They are just way overdoing it. If they did one trailer and that was it, awesome. But it's constant. And I don't know if that's just because they don't want to show anything else, but I'm sorry, the coolest advanced stuff I've seen from The Last of Us is there's a scene, it's in some sort of, I don't know, a gas station store or something like that, but they're fighting with an enemy and a quiver of arrows spills out on the floor and they start picking up every individual object one at a time. That, to me, I'm like, that's cool tech. I like that. That got me more excited because I'm a gamer than anything about the plot. Because you know what? The plot of The Last of Us 2 wasn't that big a deal. We didn't know Ellie was a lesbian in The Last of Us 2 because she was like 12. And we didn't care. We just liked her. And now it's all about that. And she's like a cranky teenager. And there's like all this stuff. And where the hell is Joel? And it doesn't really feel like Naughty Dog is treating her as a person. They're treating her as a commodity. And it sounds like that's the way Naughty Dog treats their employees too, which is really disappointing because I used to love Naughty Dog. I thought their games were great and they had a joie de vivre about them until about Uncharted 3 that seemed to come from a workforce that was essentially happy. I think the moral of the story here from a practical standpoint in terms of an ethical one is crunch your employees at your own peril. I cannot say that this employee quit because of crunch. What I'm saying is if you crunch, you maximize the likelihood that you will end up with disgruntled employees with access. You know, the amount of access this person has, I don't know if they went in with bad intentions or not. But the fact that the game was delayed indicates to me that they didn't set out to do this, that something happened and this was sort of a momentary decision they will probably regret in future if they are at all decent. But that's, if I had to guess, which I don't want to, I don't like speculation, but if I had to, if I was forced to, I would suspect that this is somebody who is just exhausted and angry that they're exhausted. They're traumatized from exhaustion and they just did something because they wanted to regain a sense of control. That's a dynamic in leaking sometimes. It's either revenge or it's control. This feels like both. Like I said, total speculation. Even if it's not, it's undeniable that if you burn out your staff, the likelihood of something like this happening increases. And I think jury's out, but this feels like a particularly troubled development cycle for The Last of Us. I mean, Uncharted 3 was utterly massive in scope, but again, departure of Amy Hennig before Uncharted 4. There was clearly some trouble on Uncharted 3. Those problems don't just start. All these things indicate a company that may still make great product. But remember when BioWare made great product because they believed in BioWare magic and they just miraculously at the last minute, everything would come together. And then it started happening less and less. Inquisition, rough around the edges. Now, apparently, that was in part because EA forcing them to rush out Dragon Age 2 messed up their narrative development. So that's not their fault. But Inquisition, messy, half-baked characters, okay, compared to the first two. 2 was compacted, but the characters were still good, right? 3, the characters, less good. Some good, others not so good. Overall quality, less. Then we had Mass Effect Andromeda, and a lot of people at BioWare going extremely social justice-y. Like crazy, rabid, white male tears mugs social justice-y. That doesn't tend to happen to people who feel valued at work, okay? Again, can't prove anything, just saying. People don't get bitter in that regard, if they feel like they're being treated well. Trust me, you don't care what yahoos on the internet say if you feel respected by your colleagues. Trust me, I've been there. So, and then we got the mess that was Anthem, which was a bad idea from the beginning. Everybody saw that coming. Unless Naughty Dog wants to go on that same path, they have to get their shit together now. And a lot of that is gonna have to come down to the higher ups, Neil Druckmann and company, humbling. Like, seriously humbling. He is not the savior of women. He is not gonna single-handedly make things better for women in gaming. Precisely because you are commodifying us through a character that we love and you claim to, okay? In a platonic, adult, little, like, kid way. Let's not get that, teen girl sexuality is extremely difficult for adult men to get right. That's a big part of the reason I sort of glanced off Life is Strange, but I've told it gets better. Unless you sort of have the direct experience of being a teenage girl, you cannot imagine the unique hell. I mean, being a teenage guy sucks, but it sucks in a different way than being a teenage girl. Like, for instance, like with guys, they sort of switch off that empathy around 15 years old. Individual results may vary. Girls go through this period where every feeling is reality. And hey, maybe he consulted teenage girls. Maybe he observed teenage girls, but it's not the same as knowing what it's like. And so no matter what, he is coming into this as an observer. So I would expect somebody who really does care about diversity of inclusion to humble on that point and not act like the savior of women everywhere. That aggravates me. The same way it aggravated me with the Mortal Kombat, oh, we're respectable now. Screw you. I don't like men acting like they own the experiences of women because you happen to have worked really hard, yes, but are also lucky enough to head up a AAA game. I, quite frankly, preferred the way the Gears of War guys handled it, which is, she's another character. She's an individual. This is what she thinks, I'm not a big fan of Kate, but they didn't act nearly as high and mighty about it. Then you get instances of somebody like Amy Hennig who knocks writing Nathan Drake out of the park. Some people are just really gifted. There are exceptions. But Amy Hennig is extremely humble. And if you ever see her talk, she lets her work speak for itself. She is so not bitter. She is so not impressed with any of it. This is my work. I want to talk about my work. I don't want to talk about what it's like to be a woman. I want to talk about my work. I want to be respected as a professional. That's what I want. I'm good at this. I want to talk about being good at this, not the body I inhabit. And I think everybody loves her for that. The problem is there's this, get woke, go broke thing going on in the background. And that's why I've taken extra time to deal with this, because I know people are going to be mad at me if I don't factor it in. Get woke, go broke, I don't necessarily think is a direct line. I think we're getting creatively sucked dry because we are going nonstop and crunching and not managing our milestones and trying to be auteurs all the time and just hoping and praying lightning will strike twice and we'll get lucky, not just twice, all those times along the line when you spitball a game that way. It's that creators get burned out, run out of ideas, decide they want to make a point instead of telling a great story, hide behind morality because they lose confidence in themselves creatively. And that's where the go broke part comes in, because they lose the connection to their love for their characters as virtual people who matter and, don't have agency but deserve some dignity, because it's sort of the proxy relationship that people have to them. I forget the term that they call it. Parasympathetic relationships. That's right. So you have to treat your characters with dignity. Even though they're not real people, you have to treat them with dignity. And if you're going to put them in undignified situations, like Ellie was put in the original Last of Us, those have to be done with extreme care. And I mean, I think relating to the deer she was hunting was cool. It was a nice little artistic moment. I would have liked them finding maybe a more interesting and original way to do it, but nothing about the Last of Us plot was particularly interesting or original, which is why I don't know why everybody's so in awe of this whole process. It makes me think of the late great Darwin Cook, and when I interviewed him, and I knew Darwin socially, it wasn't like it was the first time I was meeting him, but he'd never spoken about his craft the way he had. Darwin Cook, New Frontiers, Parker the Hunter books, I highly recommend those. But I remember him starting to talk when I was officially interviewing instead of just talking to him, about how he didn't consider himself an artist. He considered himself a craftsman. And that humility that was so central to who he was, that was connected to the sensitivity that he tried to hide real hard. But he tried real hard to seem like a grumpy dude. But if somebody needed help, he would help them, even if they didn't necessarily deserve it. He was a very giving guy, but he played his cards close to the vest in that regard. And I think that humility, that he wasn't an artist, he was a craftsman, and so he didn't have the ego of, I must pursue my art. It's like, no, I must practice my craft. And I think that's what made him consistently good and allowed him to tackle some stuff that nobody thought was going to work. And he made it work. I think that's what's lacking from franchises like The Last of Us, this idea that they are craftsmen, that they are in service of people's entertainment first and foremost, not I have something to say. That's what indie's for, right? And I think it's really great when you get something like Death Stranding, that Kojima clearly had something to say. He has something to say in every single one of his games, but the journey is fun. Like, I just had another conversation with somebody who played it, and they're like, oh my God, I couldn't put it down. I'm like, I know, I had to do every single pizza quest, right? It was enough of a humble place that the game was still fun. It wasn't just message. And I'm not totally holding out hope. I'm not totally giving up on The Last of Us will still be that. Maybe there's a bit of posturing in person. But how can we really totally enjoy a game knowing that they played this whole, I am the savior of women, I'm going to make people better people, and then treated their employees like garbage behind the scenes? That tends to offend all people's, but especially gamers, inherent need for fairness, an inherent need for credibility, and knowing you're coming at people in good faith. Tied into yesterday's video. There we go. And I think all the other things that people have gotten upset about, it's not really what they're upset about. The fact that people are like, the bad guys are Christian white men. It's like, guys, the bad guys in the first game were a white religious cult. Like, the creepiest guy in the whole game was a white dude. Nothing's changed. It was Nolan North, for fuck's sake. I'm trying to watch my language because YouTube makes me flag when there's like heavy duty swearing, if you're wondering. But I think it was just the breaking of trust and feeling like this isn't primarily about fun anymore. It's primarily about seeming superior. And that does correlate to not treating your employees terribly well when, the project is all, the art is all. It does give people internal moral license to abuse other people, and that ain't right. So, I'm hoping, but I'm preparing myself. I'm going to play the game. So if you don't want to play the game because you're not sure, watch a few sessions on Twitch. Make up your mind then. If you think it's good enough to go and play, yay, I did a public service, but I will be playing the game on Twitch. So if you want to try before you buy vicariously, go for it. Reminder, Twitch is Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays at 1 or 2 p.m. Eastern. That's been difficult now that my husband's working from home and we have to share the internet. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. That's my take on it. Because I don't know for sure what happened. I thought I'd used it to talk about other things that I care about. And I know you guys care about, because I know this has been in the background of all the discussion of this game. So if you like this kind of stuff, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. I just hope the stealth mechanics and the combat are good, for God's sakes. It's a video game, not an Oscar-nominated film. Thanks for watching.